Hello again, and welcome to Faith, Family, and Politics. I'm your host, Joshua Cummins.
We're going to have a really big show today.
That's my friend Louie there on the recording. We're going to give a little update here about him very shortly. But before we do that, to my left here, we've got Alan McFarland returning.
Hey.
Go follow Laughing Libertarian. That show launches in January, I believe, sir.
Yes. Hopefully, yeah.
Sweet. And over here to my right, I've got my father back again to give us the message this week, Gary Moore.
How y'all doing?
All right.
You can keep track of me on More on the More on YouTube.
Absolutely. He gives the message.
A word from the Word.
Absolutely. So, yeah, we're going to start the show off here with the update from Louie, I think, just before we dive into prayer.
Absolutely.
So I went and picked up Louie from the hospital today. Big triumph. Got his gallbladder taken out. He's in considerably more pain than he was before it was taken out, because I know there was a lot of pain leading up to the surgery. But he's not got a gallbladder ready to rupture in his body anymore. Oof. He had some complications early on. He had pancreatitis, and they had to wait for that to calm down before they could go into the surgery. So he was in the hospital almost 10 days. But the surgery got done today. He's got 4 new scars to talk about, and outdo us guys with scar stories.
And he got a little bit of weight loss out of it.
Yeah, a little bit, and yeah. So he's
I've
at
had mine
home.
removed. I didn't have near the pain that he has struggled with, but I didn't have the pancreatitis to deal with.
Yeah, it's awful.
I just have a pickled liver now.
And
feels good. My liver's more drunk than I am.
And so before I left, I said prayer with him, and he hadn't got a chance to actually watch the show while he was in the hospital. He was pretty upset about that, and so I gave him the link for his television, and he was actually watching episode 1 before I left the house. So he's at home trying to recover. Got a heating pad. His wife's taking care of him. It's absolutely a blessing to know that he's home and he's okay. With that, we're going to move on over into the prayer over the message.
Blessed Heavenly Father, we give you praise, going on first for our salvation. We thank you for this opportunity, Lord, to sit down with this podcast with Josh and Alan and Stu in the producer chair. Lord, just let this be a good show. Let us come across as we need to, Lord, for those that are struggling in their walk. Please allow the word to go forth and touch their hearts the way it needs to, Lord, and just let us have a good show tonight. We ask all of this in Jesus' blessed and holy name. Amen.
Amen. So, Dad, what's the title for our message tonight?
Man.
Teach us.
Teach us. Yes.
Teach us, Brother Gary.
I got taught. The message title is, Are You a Good Neighbor? Are you a good neighbor? Are you a good neighbor, Josh?
Like State Farm.
Oh, man. Now, Alan, are you a good neighbor?
Well, he straight up jacked what I was going to say.
Well, I'm sorry, Jake.
Well, like a good neighbor, Alan is there.
Knock on wood. For the other one. Probably a little better than a month ago, and that's one of the things that'll lead us into our family portion. But I found out what type of neighbor I was. And I believe we all believe that we are good neighbors. But how does the Bible define a good neighbor? Now, the 2 greatest commandments in Scripture is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. And then to love your neighbor as yourself. So I think we can pretty much go through and say, just on that commandment alone, I don't think we love our neighbors the way we love ourselves. I think we can all agree to that, yes?
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
All righty. In Luke chapter 10, we'll start at verse 30. This is Luke chapter 10, verse 30. And just leading up to it, a lawyer had, kind of tempted Jesus on this matter. What were the great commandments? But he, willing to justify himself, he asked Jesus the question, "Who is my neighbor?" And Jesus answering said, "A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves, which stripped him of his raiment and wounded him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now, I can honestly say, can we see this in the plight of our society today, that we've got a lot of people doing this same thing, not just in the city of Indianapolis, but across the country?
Especially in this current climate, we've got a lot of people divided.
Yes. From the White House to the outhouse, we're divided.
I like that.
Is there a difference?
I have to give you. Yeah. Those are fist bumps for those listening just on audio.
Yes, a round of fist bumps for that one.
Yes.
Yes, and that's the bad part. Now, see, right there, we just broke the second of the greatest commandments. Is we need to love the one that's there in the White House, whether he's politically correct or politically incorrect. But
We'll pray for him.
that's what we got to do with all of them. And stripped him of his raiment, wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain priest, which is one of the elites of the preachers. So this is the ultimate televangelist that has come on the scene. And nothing against TV evangelists. We're just saying that there is a specific type of premium person that has come up to him. He sees him, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So he saw the attack, saw the result of the attack, and went to the other side of the street and said, I can't be nowhere near that. And I think we got a lot of neighbors that are kind of like, we see stuff going on, and we don't say nothing.
Oh, well, they'll go as far as just videotape it, and they'll stand there and watch it.
That too.
Do nothing.
That too.
That's awful.
The bad part is a lot of people know about domestic violence, and we're really not looking out for our neighbors. So here we've got someone that just flat out didn't do anything. Kind of saw a body on the ground and went by. He was the other half of the hit and run.
Wow.
And likewise, a Levite, which is, let's see here, your political analyst.
Okay.
Like a talking head.
A talking head.
Okay.
When he was at the place, came and looked on him. So literally, he took the camera and said, we've got the shot. We're going to get you squared away, sir. This will be on all the major networks. And we will tell your story. We will tell the truth as seen through my eyes.
But still not helping.
Exactly. Came, looked on him, and passed by on the other side. So he kind of walked across the street, seen him, may have said something to him, and then walked back across the street and kept going.
So it sounds like the Levite was fake news.
We can run with that one.
Okay.
I was thinking just self-serving.
Yeah, self-serving, yes. But a certain Samaritan, and as he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. And see, right now, let me finish reading, because then I'm going to continue. I'm going to end the story before I have a chance to get into the story. And went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring in oil and wine. Now, let's just be perfectly clear. The wine that we are talking about is from the cluster. So for all you party animals out there, what wine Jesus created came from the cluster. Look it up in Scripture.
So it's closer to Welch's grape juice then, huh?
Yes, exactly.
Maybe not so much sugar, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, Welch's, I believe, is supposed to be all natural.
Yeah.
Thank you to our producer for the fine intro of laughter in that moment. I hope you all enjoyed that as much as the rest of us. And set him on his beast and brought him to an inn. It wasn't a Holiday Inn, I believe. It may have been a Motel 8. I'm not 100% certain. I'm not sure which one of them was around at that time.
As long as it came with a breakfast, I don't think he cared.
Yeah.
I think he was just happy to be off the side
And
of
in
the
the
road.
morning, I'm making waffles.
And took care of him. And on the morrow, when he departed, he took out 2 pence. Now, this is $64. So we're talking a fair amount of money back then.
Absolutely.
And he gave them to the host, and said unto him, Take care of him, and whatsoever thou spendest more, when I come again, I will repay thee. Which now of these 3 thinkest thou was neighbor unto him that fell among the thieves? And he said, He that showed mercy on him, then said Jesus unto him, Go and do likewise. Now, what we see here, and it's one of the things that we had kind of talked about. Let me make sure stay continued upon the mic. I don't want to get off and you guys lose me. One of the things in 1 John chapter 3, verse 15, and I want to bring this to a reality to you, because Jesus, when he looks at murder, he took it a step further. He took it to a step further. It says, Whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer. I'm going to stop there for a minute. So literally, if you're looking at your neighbors, though, you little,
You really hate that guy.
Yeah, once you throw that word in there, you have, in essence, became a murderer. Wow. That's kind of deep and hurtful.
Yeah.
I hope you all have your steel-toed shoes on. Otherwise, we're all going to be going ouch here shortly. Yeah. Because that's the reality of it. We find ourselves in that state of mind. We've already seen the priest, the Levite, and then the Samaritan. Now, for a Jew and a Samaritan, let's just go ahead and we'll put it into classes. In today's society, we have inequality of the races. Now, based upon this political point,
premise, yeah.
On this premise here, a white person and a black person come together for a common goal. And it doesn't matter which one's hurt. I'm not saying which one's hurt. I'm saying one is hurt. But another one sees that person with compassion, picks him up, bounds his wounds. And this is the problem with our society today, is we're not willing to help anyone but number one. Now, there are those that like to identify that the element that adjusts the level of your skin, that determines the compassion that you have. And I'm most certain that there will be some in the viewing audience that'll understand where I'm going with that.
Well, it drives home a point that I was talking with a coworker earlier today, and we were talking about that very thing. And I said, all that fades away, because I was told all my life, never judge a book by its cover. But we could go more into depth than that on another date. But the point was, are you a good person or are you a bad person? Just like MLK Jr. said, judge a man by his character. So it's, are you a good person or are you a bad person? That's all I need to know.
Yeah. And that's see, that has been one of the greatest things is they have referenced a statement that he has made in the past, is that the voice of the mob has value. I mean, and I have completely misquoted that, but they're saying, he was condoning the violent protest, the violent looting of a group of people. I'm not going to overwhelm and jump into the different storylines because I believe we have touched on those.
Yeah, a little bit.
And I don't feel like we have a society that should be approaching things that way. But one of the things that, and see, this is where we're all guilty, and this is the thing that that I had to deal with. 1 Timothy chapter 1 verse 15 says, "This is a faithful saying that Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners." Now, sinners. Who qualifies as a sinner? Okay, well, what is a sinner? A sinner is an individual that's born of flesh. If you have come from a female womb, you are a sinner. And that sin came in through Adam and Eve. But now Paul goes through and says, of whom I am chief. Of whom I am chief. Now, Paul's going to go through and say that he's chief of sinners. Man, I ain't even worthy to clean the dirt off of Paul's shoes. I'm even lower on the ladder than him. And so we find ourselves in this process. But God commended. He gave us his love toward us in that while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. And we can't even manage. No greater love. Christ said, no greater love has a man than if he lay his life down for his friend. And that's what Christ did. And see, we alienate our military in today's society. We alienate the police, and I think they're really handicapped. Do I think there are police that need there needs to be improved training for certain aspects.
Reform for sure. Yeah.
Because we have drug usage that is going on now that the end result is you've got people that don't want to get arrested. And so if they've got a bag of meth, if they can't throw it out, they're not going to be able to hide it in the car. So what's the next place they can put it? And that's to ingest it. And then, unfortunately, they're not going to say they ingested it, and then they got a problem. The police don't know. So when they finally berserk out and get Thor-type strength and start fighting and acting out,
or worse, they've put themselves in a very awful medical situation where they've OD'd, and now they're
that is the end result.
Quickly die in front of these police officers that have no knowledge of the drug use. Yeah.
Then that process causes you to then have to review that stuff in a different fashion. But going on with what we've got here, are we holier than our neighbor? And I can politely say it doesn't matter what type of neighbor. I know for me, I have been accused of looking Latino. I've been accused of being too white. Back in the day, there was a such thing as called a hood. You wore a denim jacket with a zip-up hoodie underneath that. Those were the ones that usually smoked pot and cigarettes. So I kind of blended in with everyone, so I was everybody's neighbor. And I kind of like that. But you find yourself, if you're not, let me kind of bring that into full perspective. Because I fit into so many groups, Bill Murray, when he was giving his speech in Stripes, and I don't know how many of you have seen it. If you haven't seen it, I recommend seeing it.
Spoiler alert. No, you can't spoil it. Okay, go ahead.
But in that scene, he kind of brushes up against everyone and says, hey, we're all Americans. We're all mutts. Americans are mutts. We're not one breed of anything. We're multiple. We're mutts. And that's how I view things. I don't throw any hyphens to who I am. I'm an American. Born here, I'll die here. Unless the Lord sees fit that I need to be in the mission field to take care of my neighbors abroad. But one of the things in, let's see here.
So you're trying to find your next point there?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
While
you go through, go ahead.
Yeah.
While you're looking, a couple of things I think is very interesting what you were saying there about being mutts. Right, there are a couple of things that really are only found in America. First of all, when it comes down to it, we are the only country that typically hyphenates our ancestors' previous location. We're the only country that says Irish American, English American, Native American, even things like that. We're the only country that does that. If for some reason we want to grasp our roots, even though we don't necessarily have any skin in the game as far as those roots. Another thing that's really interesting about Americans and having such different culture from each other and coming from different places is that odd feeling you get when you smile, when you see someone you don't know and you guys kind of share an awkward smile, but that's how we do it.
Yeah.
That's typically an American thing, and that came about with so many people coming through Ellis Island from so many different locations, not knowing each other's language, that they would typically smile and nod. So that's traditionally an American thing as well, which these are things that I've read that I thought was fairly interesting, just going along with your point.
And absolutely. I mean, when you look at our society, there's a vast majority of us that will go through, and that kind of falls into our political segment, and I'm not going to try not to go into that, but
Yeah.
we have found this new deal to where we used to look and say our neighbor has the equal right to be successful. And now it's, if my neighbor makes it and I don't, I hate him for it. No. If he got out, you can get out. And if you're smart and you're a good enough neighbor to him, chances are he may bring you along with him. If he starts $1 million idea and he starts it in his garage, and if you're right there with him, guess what? Where are you at on that ladder? You a whole lot higher on that ladder than someone that gets on that ladder 10 years from now.
Absolutely.
And that's the whole notion of being a good neighbor. Now, granted, with the story that I've read, we are talking about a deeper subject. We're talking about life and death. Right. And so with that, and I'm not even remotely sure how close we are on our timeline, but alrighty. We're getting the high fives. So I've got about another 10 minutes we can fill on this topic. But the good thing is as we process into who is my neighbor, your neighbor is whomever you come in contact with. And I think everyone kind of forgets that. I'm not discussing the individuals that are your friends on Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter. Just because you have 15,000 friends on Facebook.
Air quote friends,
your air quote friends, yes, air quote friends on social media, that doesn't define them as a friend. Now, here's the reality of it. In today's society, in the last 5 years, only 34%, and I would have to double check that, but I'm wanting to say it's less. Actually, I believe it's less than 40% have made a new friend, a true friend, someone that you are willing, that you will hang outside of work or you will go to dinner with each other in the last 5 years. Now, for me, I kind of escaped that on the simple fact that I have changed jobs. I went from working at a glass manufacturer in their commercial metal department over into the union, and have worked for 2 or 3 different companies in the process, working for the union themselves on whether it be job sites or shops in the fabrication end of it. So with that stated, it has allowed me to kind of make friends that I have gone to lunch with. We've shared rides to Kokomo. We split weeks and stuff. And
the Kokomo is about a 45-minute drive, so it's or more.
So you're in a car with this other individual for well over an hour or so a day. You're taking off at 5 o'clock in the morning to head for Kokomo to be on job, and so you gain a relationship, and so ergo, taking a new job gives you the opportunity to make new friends. But how often do you put forth the effort to make a friend? Right. Do we really try to find that new friend, that someone? And that's one of the things that Christ was saying. He says, he in essence was saying, never meet a stranger. I've given you all you need to have. If they see that there's something different about you, they're going to want to get to know you. If you seem like you're a happy person, they're at least going to want to say hi.
Yeah, well, they're going to say, what is making them so happy? I need some of that. Toss some of that magic my way.
Yes, exactly. Well, the great thing is what God has for us isn't magic. It's something that's all inside each and every one of us.
That's what most people's first thought is.
Yes. Yeah. And beautiful thing is I believe I've never met a stranger. I've just met a friend or an acquaintance that I haven't got to know yet. Yeah. I've been able to make conversations with individuals in line at the grocery store, at Walmart.
I think that I don't want to speak out of line here, but I think everybody at this table has got that ability of being able to just make a friend wherever we're at. I learned it directly from you by watching you. So then I in turn, it drives the wife crazy, but She's like, "Can you meet one stranger, just one? Just we got to go. We have places to be." And I'm like, "No, there's things to talk about. We got to,
Yeah. Well, see, the good thing is for me, for several years there wasn't any place that I went that I didn't meet someone I knew. We took a trip. And this has been several years back. My niece got married, and in doing so, we got the opportunity. Her father had cancer, so we took their spot as to represent my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law at the wedding, and which was a beautiful thing. But we were down there. They went into one of the shops, and you know how ladies are. They like to go in all the clothing stores.
women be shopping, baby."
Oh, yeah, women be shopping. Can't stop a woman from shopping. Get the whole Eddie Murphy sound going on in there. Actually, that wasn't Eddie Murphy.
That was Dave Chappelle, actually.
That was Dave Chappelle.
Yeah, as his character on the movie,
Yes.
though. Yeah.
And shameless plug for the
Well, this is the first one, Nutty Professor, yeah.
Nutty Professor. But gentleman just happened, his wife walked in and got to talking. He kind of looked familiar. I couldn't quite place where I'd seen him from. And oddly enough, him and his wife were the parents of one of the guys I went to high school with. So I knew them, but I didn't know them.
Yeah.
So they knew me like I knew them, which I'm sure the online audience is going, what exactly does that mean? It means, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. My name's Gary Moore. So ergo, they know me. I played football with their son. So
They knew of you.
They knew me. They didn't know me.
Yeah.
And so running into him, he's like, we kind of start talking. He's like, I love being down here, but the wife's going to empty my wallet. And I says, too late. My wife emptied the wallet before we had a chance to get to this destination. But that's a whole other story nonetheless. So, we were sitting there talking for like 15, 20 minutes. And, I talked about his son and what they were doing and everything. And he's like, he said, I never would have thought I'd have came to Gatlinburg and would have ran into someone from Kokomo. And I said, there ain't too many places I go I don't run into someone I know.
It's a small world.
Small world, yes. Disney doesn't have a market on that one. That belongs to
open source, man.
That,
open
that
source.
belongs to all of us.
Yeah, open source.
But checking once again for our time, I'll tell you what, I think we can go ahead and slide in. The reason that I brought this story up is because, like I said at the beginning of it, I found out that I wasn't as good of a neighbor as I thought I was. And to kind of bring this home, and not to get overly morbid, but I mean, we're talking, the story talked about life and death. So my neighbor he had just gotten a Toro zero-turn mower. So let's just clear the air. This is a total Tim Allen home improvement moment. So he is ecstatic to have this mower. It was completely excited for it. Last time I had talked to him, I'd gotten home from work. I'm still in the truck. I haven't even gotten out of the truck. He rides over after finishing the front yard. He's getting ready to head to the back. He says, "Here's my new mower." He's just grinning ear to ear. We're talking, and our conversations pretty much were on the basis of faith, politics, work, and that was the extent of it.
He'd have fit right in on this show.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would have. And and guns.
That's welcome here too.
That all goes in there too. I feel like it's all together there.
Yeah.
God, guns, and an assortment of other things. But we hadn't seen him in, I was thinking, a couple weeks, and it may have been longer than that. Kim, my wife, Josh's mom, had been kind of concerned. It's like, I ain't seen him. He ain't cut his grass. And I said, up there on the doors, a slip. They've treated his yard. He can't cut his grass since they've treated his yard. And it's been longer than that. And so the whole time I was sitting back going, man, I don't want to find the guy. I don't want to find him that way. And so inevitably, it's like we come to the conclusion, there's an odor. We've got to check it out. Now, I am not a mastermind at breaking into homes. I was cleared by the police of it, but I did break into the home. I will not tell the secrets on how I broke into the home, but I was able to get in the home.
It's through the chimney.
Ho, ho, ho. No.
Good old Saint Nick. Yeah, no. Him and I are on two different path lines. I haven't learned the trick to get down the chimney quite the way he does. But I was able to get in the home. I've got one of the doors ajar. I look over at one of the other neighbors, and I'm like, so as a community, are we full agreements? I need to go in. Someone needs to go in. She just kind of looks over at my wife and one of the other neighbors, and it's like, yeah, someone's got to go in. So in I go.
What you gotta do? No.
I got to do what I got to do. He's got 2 or 3 cats. I remember seeing 3, but when everything was said and done, that's a here and a there. I found him on the floor, dead. He'd been dead a while. And so I kind of walked back out the door. The house is smelling rank. He'd been dead a minute or two. And when I say a minute or two, we're talking a week or two.
Relative term. Yeah.
Relative term. Which, not only that, I had found out that he carries a level of OCD. And to me, OCD is someone that has to have things a specific way. And usually they're a little bit on the neat freak side. Now, I'm not going to say all OCD people are that way. It's just been my general understanding.
Yeah, obsessive compulsive disorder is a wild one.
And so for me, what I saw wasn't just a dead person, but was someone that was secretly crying for help and wasn't bothering to say anything to anyone that was communicating with him. So that's one of the things that kind of stemmed this message on, are you a good neighbor? And I found myself kind of in a spot, and so many people kind of went through and said, man, sorry you had to see that. And I was like, I'm not. I needed to see that. If you want to know what type of person you really are, find someone you thought you had a good relationship with dead. And then you realize, I guess it wasn't as good as I thought it was. We're not talking boyfriend, girlfriend. It's, oh, my boyfriend disappeared for 2 or 3 days, and, well, he just does that. No, we're talking someone you've been trying to keep track of to a certain degree. We let him keep to himself, but to kind of bring this full circle, this is an individual that moved to Indiana from the West Coast. I'm sorry, Robert. I know where you prefer. He's an East Coaster, so he likes his Maine lobster, his fresh seafood off the East Coast. We had discussed that and doing some hunting in other places, but I knew he was from the East Coast. You could hear it in his accent. It wasn't quite a Bostonian type accent. It was somewhere in the New England area.
Yeah.
But so that was part of our conversations. But so he brings his wife here so she could be closer to her parents, which live one house. I'm on one side of his house. His in-laws were on the other. Excuse me. And her mother passes. Or no, I'm sorry. She passes. She ends up with cancer. And, I mean, in a short amount of time, she passes. His wife does. And then his mother-in-law, his brother-in-law, his father-in-law. So now he is here in Indiana, in essence, by himself. He's got family. He's got family on the East Coast.
So he felt kind of like Atlas. He's got the weight of the world on him.
Yeah, and but see, that wasn't something that he was necessarily discussing. He wasn't passing that information along. But we weren't asking. We weren't really being the neighbors that we needed to be.
Maybe he thought he was going to burden you if he did.
And that very well could have been. So we got information and we shared information, but it was never to the extent that maybe it should have been. Now that doesn't mean that we all need to jump into the colleges and all get a bachelor's or a certificate on psychology.
No, but we can be an ear.
Yeah, we can be a better ear than what we have.
Because I think I can also speak for everybody at this table. I think oversharing is okay. Please, if you feel like you've got something that is just eating at you, overshare with anybody at this table. I think that's okay with everybody here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unburden yourself with everything, because there's nothing worse than carrying a lot of that stuff, a lot of that weight, especially if it's like we've discussed it last week, talking about the weight of suicidal thoughts, and I can't I've went through some of those thoughts myself over the years, but I learned to overshare even if it was uncomfortable, because if someone's listening, they're gonna be a sound. Even if it's bad advice, you're still unloading that feeling, unloading those thoughts, and like I said, even if it's bad advice, you're still unburdening yourself. You're pulling that weight up just a little bit.
I mean, we're social creatures, so
Absolutely.
I mean that's no matter how you feel how much you feel like a loner or anything like that. At the end of the day, all of us, no matter how introverted, we are social creatures, and that's how we learn, and that's how we benefit emotionally as well.
Yeah, message the show, message us as individuals. I'll make time to get on a phone call personally.
Absolutely.
Alan, do you have a good neighbor story for us?
Well, when it comes to neighbors, I bought my house, and I've had kind of a carousel of renters. I'm watching your hand movements there.
Oh, I'm just pulling
Move your cord.
I did a little more slack on the headphones there.
I'm
Sorry about
I
that.
was trying to figure out your fingers were moving around. I was like, okay, rewind
I've got
back it up.
cup full, or nearly a cup full of coffee in me now. So
Okay, I was trying to figure out if I had to go back to the beginning. Like, if you really want to go for the
my obsessive, well, not obsessive, but my ADHD is kicking in pretty hard.
Nice.
Caffeine adds to it.
So where?
So go ahead.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
absolutely, I'm on it. I had kind of a carousel of renters next door to me, and that's a roller coaster, to say the least. You're one year you're like, hey, these guys are I don't want to go outside. I really don't want to interact with these people at all. And then the next people come in, and you're like, man, these guys are fantastic. I hope they stay forever. I want them to buy this house. What's it going to take for them to buy this house?
Yeah.
It's hard. I always want to be a good neighbor. And so luckily, one side of me, a guy came in and actually bought the house. And I've got to kind of build a relationship with him. Well, he and his wife, those are fantastic. They're fantastic people. And then still have the rental on the other side. And so it's just, that's one of the worst. It's not a bad feeling because, how does it affect my property value, or, this or that. It's nothing like that. It's just literally like, and it's not the fact that I want to be able to say it's a foundation of who's next to me, and I know who's next to me all the time. It's the simple fact that, you want your neighbors to be people in a pinch. If for some reason something happened to me, I'd love to have a neighbor know that he came in my house and he came in, opened my door, and made sure I was okay. And likewise, I want to make sure I have somebody next door that I would go help, for instance. Yeah. And I really, and in that case, I don't know if I'm actually the best neighbor. I guess it changes year to year, right? Whenever that lease is up and they sign a new lease, I have to then reevaluate whether or not I'm a good neighbor.
Yeah.
And this last wave of neighbors I had, I felt kind of bad because they'd actually sold the house. The house actually burned. I knew the owners of the house.
Man.
And they said, we were just going to go ahead and sell the house we're living in and just move back into this one. That was their first house.
Yeah.
They were just renting it out, and they sold it instead. Unfortunately, a whole bunch of young people moved in, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about young people. I was a young person. All of us were young people.
Absolutely.
It just, unfortunately, what comes with being young typically is that you don't think so much about everybody else yet. You're not at that point yet. You
just know everything.
Yeah, you know everything, and your whole world your whole world goes to the extent of your fingertips. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Versus everybody else, when you have kids, obviously that's an extension. When you have a house, that's an extension that takes you out past your fingertips and things that matter. And yeah, I had a whole house full of people who were very self-centered. Couldn't talk to them about anything, and I didn't have as many problems with them, but the neighbor on the other side of them did.
Yeah.
And again, I knew all the foundational neighbors.
Yeah.
So one day I come home, neighbor on the other side kind of brings me over and he kind of pulls me aside, but we're right in front of the middle neighbor's house, right where the young people are. And he's telling me, hey, I don't trust these people. These people call me names. They do this and that and the other thing. And meanwhile, one of them comes to the door and just starts staring at us. And we're in front of his house on a public sidewalk. And I'm like, this is great. I'm going to get drawn into this.
Yeah. Drama.
Right? And, that guy never came out and said anything to me, but as soon as I went back to my house, he stepped out and started yelling at the other neighbor and calling him all kinds of names, calling him just childish names. These are all adults. And actually the other neighbor is former military, serviceman. And so to hear him say these kinds of things, what can you do, right? Luckily they're gone now. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I guess I rambled there, but the whole point is when you have a rental next door, and it kind of puts me in the position to try to figure out every year whether or not I'm a good neighbor.
Yeah.
Well, if they're difficult, pray for them.
Right?
God, please take care of them.
Like, I'm not going to call the police on them.
Teach them a lesson.
I'm one of those people, again, I'm a libertarian, so if it doesn't affect me directly, I don't care. You know what? If you're out here...
Which in turn, is something you still got to work on, just on the simple fact that in the end, the dynamics of a neighborhood involve everyone from one end of the street to the other, and realistically even 2 or 3 blocks away. A family that's, well, in this situation, you're a West Sider, and Josh is more of a Southeast Sider than I am, but we're in essence both still Southeast Siders for Marion County, on the basis of Marion County. You're Beech Grove. I'm Southeast Side Indy. But when you look at it I still have to view anyone that's on the west side as being a neighbor, and I want all the communities in a county, in a city, to thrive and be successful, because when everyone's successful, we're all pulling in. One of the greatest things about the city of Indianapolis is when big events come here, people are excited. When we had the Super Bowl here, people raved about it. They absolutely hated when it was
They
in
strongly
Texas.
disliked. we were talking about the weight of that
yes,
word, so
the
yes,
weight of the
strongly
word. Well,
disliked.
I think there's a family that lost a father and a son in the ice storm that took place down there when the ice came off of one of the stadiums that was down there. I believe they both died. It could have been just seriously injured, but I was thinking, I remember the report was that they were dead, and that they had died.
Either way, it sucks.
Yes, tragic. But all the events were over like 2 or 3 cities. It wasn't in one area. And so with that stated, they were like, this is ridiculous. You've got the media group that's in one town, and then we've either got to go north or south for different events. We're not in one central location.
You can walk everywhere you need to be.
Yeah. We had the hotels, the entertainment establishments that are very spirited for those that require extra spirit. Great pizza joints that are downtown. You have your high-end restaurants that have the glorious exotic meats of the world, and more than 2 or 3 places down there. And then of course
it was a good place to be.
The weather.
Yeah, the weather broke our way. Normally, it's very cold around that time of year for us.
For us, it's very cold. But they got to see the type of neighbor Indiana was and Indianapolis was. Everyone raved. They loved spending money. Everyone came to Indy. And even there was people from South Bend, Gary, I'm sure there was people from Cleveland that had come down.
I mean, they're from all over the state, neighboring
all
states,
over
for
states,
sure.
neighboring
But the
states,
Midwest
probably,
in general, for sure, is all coming here.
Because it was here. Chicago's has enjoyed having those types of events, but
they call us flyover states, but they forget that we're the backbone. They forget that we are the good neighbors.
Right. We're not ready for the political portion.
Yeah.
But no, yes. So So when you go through and you look at, when you say, who is my neighbor and how should I treat my neighbor, you need to constantly keep that in mind is your neighbor just isn't the house that's next to you. It's even further than that. When we look at the plight of the hospitals and those that are sick and afflicted, we've kind of got to look at them. It's like that's someone's brother, mother, father, sister, aunt, uncle, and they've got someone they'd all like to go home to. So when we, as believers, one of the things that God is asking us to do is to speak on their behalf. First and foremost, that they receive salvation, but that God, being the great physician that He is, He's willing to say, I hear you, and I feel the love that you have for this individual, and I'm going to do something about it. And the mascot feels the same way. It's share the love.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and
Which
to that,
is not limited to Toyota. It's the share the love event for all of us.
so to that point, talking about neighbors, for those watching on video, you'll notice, and well, you may even notice on audio as well. A neighbor of ours is not here with us. If you had seen the promo on our Facebook page, Donald Martyr, he's not here tonight. His wife needs prayers. He's spending time with her and making sure that she's okay. And I think when we close the show with prayer at the end, we'll make sure and add that in, and it's along as well. We'll add a prayer in for Louis as well, so he can get his healing. So as far as the neighbor story for me, I want to go with. It's interesting that you talked about. I mean, it went the way it was going to go, but lawn mowing. I had never owned a home until 2014, and what? Oh, Journey is giving Ellen a hard time here. Journey, go to bed.
Mascot is showing extra love. She's identifying
absolutely
how special of a
She's
neighbor
like camping.
you are.
She's like camping. She's intense. Journey, go to bed. Go to bed. We first moved in to our home here in Beech Grove. The first neighbor to ever greet me is now my boss. And to fill in that gap there was a time that he was not feeling so well. He wasn't doing so hot. And there was a stretch for about 2 years, actually. He was going through this. It turns out it was some kind of an allergy or something like that. And now that he eats more healthy, he's okay. But he took that with him when he started his company. And I actually, I work for him now. But when he had seen, that I was just taking care of his yard and I didn't ask anything back, he was like, okay, I know that you're into computers a little bit. And our job happens to actually do that. Would you be interested? And I'm like, I can come in for an interview. And I was looking for another job anyhow. And yeah, and I went in for an interview and they were like, oh yeah, we'll call you back in about a week or a few days or something like that. I don't know. I was just super nervous. But it turns out that not only did that good word of being a good neighbor have some weight to it, but I actually related to everyone during my interview and became very neighborly very quickly with all of them. And I get to carry those relationships even into now. And so it's really fantastic that, something as small as, because Beech Grove yards are rinky dinky. It takes me 15 more minutes to cackle another yard. No big deal. I'm already out there sweating anyway. I need the steps.
Now, if someone were to want to upgrade him to a zero turn, he could double that yardage very rapidly and probably clear the front yards of.
I think I'm well.
I
think I'm well enough off at this point, financially speaking. I think that I can hire some youngsters in the neighborhood and let them have at it.
That's what you say. I had a couple of kids pull up, and I was like, "Great, this is great. They're going to mow my grass. They have a push mower. They have a little wagon, a blower, and a trimmer." And I started to pull out $30. And I was like, "Hey, kiddos, okay, you want to mow some grass? Here's $30." Kid looked at me right in the eye and said, "Sir, I'm sorry, we don't mow for less than 50."
Wow. He's not a good neighbor.
Wow.
Inflation, I guess.
I would go as far as to say is that is someone that has seen the empire.
Yeah.
Well, and likewise, though, I was out doing some stonework and things out around my driveway and my walkway. No joke, I'm on my hands and knees. I'm digging up everything and kind of laying everything to put my stones in. This young man goes walking by. I mean, he's probably 10, 11 years old. And he goes, "Sir, I see you're out here doing some work. I would love to learn. And I would come over here and work if you just pay me a little bit for my time." And I was like, as much as I really wanted to ask him to go ahead and get in there, because you want to cultivate that.
Yes,
right? That's
absolutely.
something you don't find.
Exactly.
He came up and he was like, "Little bit of money, I want to learn." And I'm like, man, I'm almost done. There really isn't a whole lot to teach or to pay for.
Yeah.
And I felt awful but I did tell him, I was like, this right here is exactly the ambition you're supposed to have in life. And, don't let the fact that I'm saying not right now mean never come out and do it again.
Exactly. And that's the part. Now to tell one on Alan, I mean, because we were neighbors to him as you guys were growing up.
We all were neighbors.
Yeah.
So
even the guy that's not here, Donald, he was part of the neighborhood. He was there with us. Yeah.
So there was, I would say we did everything we could to keep everyone as right as rain in the neighborhood, as reasonable as possible.
Yeah.
You guys were still kids and were going to do what you were going to do regardless.
That's a nice way to put it. Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
So to say the least, I mean, we are looking at a society that they want to say a portion of the neighbors have greater value than other portions of the neighbors. Well, the prayer of Jabez runs like this. Now, Jabez asked for protection, a hedge of protection. So we in so many other places they build walls for protection. You've got high dollar communities that are called gated communities.
We're going to build a wall.
We're going to build the wall. It's going to be great. Well, we've got societies that have built walls to separate. Well, not separate, divide.
Yeah.
Divide. And there's good walls and bad walls. You got good walls can make good walls and good fences can make good neighbors, and it can also make even greater enemies on the basis of how you treat the walls that you build. And I think that's one of the things that we've got to get back to. We were a society, and I mean, we had our bumps in the road. What took place as we were getting started as a nation truly shows the struggles that we've had and the battles that we've went through. We have done our best to get to be a society that others want to be here because of what we have grown. So when you've got people going through saying we are a hated or a country of hatred.
Not even close.
Not even remotely
I'd
close.
invite anyone who says that to try 20 minutes in another country. We'll see how that pans out for them.
Yes.
Like I always like to say to people, for anything that has to do with our country, there's a reason why we have exponentially more people coming in than we have leaving every year.
Absolutely.
If all of these negative things were true of our country, how many people would come versus how many people are leaving? And there are countries in Africa, for instance, who are reaching out to African Americans here and saying, "Hey, come here, come home. We'll help pay to get you here. We'll help you out," because they want the skills and they want the money to come there, right? But no one's leaving. And yet, how many people came across the border this last month? I'd had to pull those numbers, but that's neither here nor there. The numbers are amazing. How many people come into the country?
I think we can have our producer look that up.
Yeah, let's put some work on him.
Yeah.
There he goes.
Yeah.
He's on it.
He's on it. He's looking that up. So
Sorry, guys. Sorry.
absolutely, yeah.
No, this is a perfect deal. I don't have a problem with people wanting to come to America to find their American dream.
Absolutely.
I love the dreamers. Dream the dreams, grow the businesses, exceed. Because if you come in and with a skill that can grow, and I think that's one of the things that
Merit. Merit.
a president that we had identified and said, you know, if you've got skills that are going to improve yourself and improve the state of our country, come. We want you. We want those that have a head on their shoulders. In a book that my cousin, and I'm going to kind of get a little bit off topic, but there's a point to it that can kind of blend in with this. The type of people that we desire to see, and we desire all people to be, that are in this country, because we want entrepreneurs. We want people that are thinkers. We can't all be business owners. Some of us are just bred to be workers, and we're okay with that. We don't need overeducated. One of the things that was in the book on how to give an interview was to ask the question, how many quarters can you stack up to reach the top of the Empire State Building? Now, I'm standing in a group of about 15 people, and they're all just kind of fumbling around, can't even remotely think on this. And my mind has already processed that I'm looking at 120 quarters per floor, right? Yeah, 120. Because
Math is not my strong suit, so whatever you say is gonna. I'm not gonna fact check you on it.
okay. Well, a quarter is about an inch
So-
in height. So if you're looking at the face of it,
So we'll say it's
that's
that
an
number.
inch tall.
Yeah.
So you're talking 12 per foot.
25.4 millimeters.
So we don't need to get into the over specifics. The inch works well. The inch works wonderful here in America. Our fraction system works wonders. We calculate it in a calculus fashion so greatly. But just with the notion that within him completing the statement, I'm going, okay, well, you're at 120, but you're at 10 floors up, you're at 1,200 or 12,000. I can't, now my math isn't looking near as small.
Oh, you're doing new math then.
No, I don't have enough boxes or enough time. We'd be putting it up here on the wall. I said, so you got to do this and do this and to this box and to that box, and every place gets a spot. But no.
So to your point,
This is the part of our education that is, so I can make a cup of coffee faster than they can do their math. But with that mindset, that is, if you're the type of person that immediately you picture the quarter in your head and you say, okay, that's about an inch. Okay, that's 12 quarters per foot, yada, yada, yada. That type of a mindset is someone that is looking to achieve, someone that's looking to succeed, and someone that will profit.
problem solver.
Yeah,
Problem solver.
Yep.
And see, that's what we want. We want those individuals here in the United States that want success, not at the expense of destroying someone else. We want you to love your neighbor because he could be your employee or he could be your boss, one or the other. And that's kind of a harsh reality,
That's true.
Nothing's worse than being on the interstate. You're headed for an interview. You're running behind, only to find out that the guy you've been honking and flipped off 3 times is the guy that's interviewing you for the job you're wanting.
Right.
That's actually quite interesting that you should talk about that. Not flipping off, but I did get into a speeding match with a guy one time, and we were heading down south, and we were going to a wedding, Laura and I, and we kept passing this guy, and I'm like, what is this guy's deal? And every time we turned, I'm like, there's no way we're going to the same place. So I kept like, okay, well, he's at some point he's turning off. We're going our separate ways. And it never happened. And we actually pull into the same place. We're going to my nephew's wedding, and we both get out of the car, and we say nothing for the wedding, the whole time. We're kind of like we're looking at each other as we're all, kind of getting out of the parking lot. We're all leaving. We're actually walking out at the same time. So now we're doing the same thing that we were doing on the highway. We're trying to get around each other, get back to our vehicles. And I was like, you know what? This is silly. I'm just going to say, if we'd have known that we were coming to the same place, we wouldn't have acted that way, would we? And he said no, and then we had a conversation. So we got to be a little bit of a neighborly conversation. It worked out.
We just nod and say, "Hey, see you at the next roundabout."
See it at the next roundabout. No, in that situation, no, for me, when I run into those situations, I am not going to say, and others have said it, I won't say that I am a walking, talking GPS, but I can get myself anywhere I need to go.
Yeah, Gary Positioning Services. Yeah,
yes,
absolutely.
I have worked well for some of his trips.
Yeah,
but
I get lost in a paper bag, so
which is pretty bad. There's one way in, one way out.
I have no sense of direction.
But so I get into that situation. My mindset's like, man, if they turn the direction I'm going straight, I can find there'll be another street that's going to turn down that way. And so, to say the least, we want people in the United States that desire strength, that desire that willingness to win. Those that are leaving these third world countries see that what is taking place there just doesn't feel like
they're driven. They're willing to go through the process the right way.
For
they're willing
Central America
to build
it
up.
doesn't feel like familia.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It no longer feels like family. And I'm sure at one point it did, but it has with the drug issues and other stuff, and the neighborhoods just going to pot, and then the upper realms of politicians.
Yeah, I mean,
and
hopefully Alan's next round of renters is some good immigrants that's got merit and they got a small business.
Absolutely.
And they make good food, and they're like, hey, you want to come over? And
absolutely. Now see, there you go. That wouldn't be too bad. It was like she's run. She starts that food truck out of the back of the van. I've been on a few paint job sites back in the day, and some mirror delivery jobs where you see a panel van pull up, and she'll run a slide. Coolers will come out, and she'll have a flat top so she can heat up the tortillas and go to town. She's got the meat and everything.
I need this to be my neighbor. Yeah, not for myself, but for the wife. She loves.
Unfortunately, I'm on the third floor watching this all go down. It's like, oh man.
I can't lie though.
Good.
Having a plethora of renters like that, you do actually get several little bits of experience, right? So like this renter, teaches you. I had one renter teach me all about like antiques and things to look for when you're going past a yard sale, because he actually had a booth.
Gary V type.
Sold this stuff.
Yeah,
absolutely. And then the next person showed me what happens if you use meth. And then I get someone who's quiet, and you get a little conversation with him, find out he's a very mechanical person, teaches some nice handy skills.
Yeah.
And then the next person is an alcoholic, and you find out exactly what the line between a misdemeanor and a felony is. So, you get a lot. Everyone has something to offer.
Alrighty.
Sterling, were we able to find those numbers?
Did we find those notes?
Yeah, did we find them?
Wasn't able to find for November, but it's up to like almost 1.98 million this year.
1.98 million.
1.98 million. I wonder how few left. How few actually left?
Yeah.
Well, I venture to say none of them did.
And how many of those do you think are going to make their court date in 3 years?
There's that.
So I think I can roll us right into the political portion. So first story up, it's actually an update from last week. So last week we talked about Chris Cuomo on the outs with CNN. Thing after thing after thing. I mean, I'm sure that Brian Stelter, I can't say his name properly, and I don't care. His show is called Reliable Sources, as if that's true.
I just
could not say enough.
I'll say for
because
the
he
record,
wanted his time slot.
I'll say for the record, I'm glad he was there for his brother. Right or wrong,
he did love his brother. He did love his brother. He's got that, and I can't say that I wouldn't do the same thing if it was for my own brother. I mean, at least as far as the brother thing goes. But there were factors because they were actually CNN was going to forgive that. They were going to forgive that because they're like, oh, well, I mean, yes, you used our platform to push a few lies about your brother, but it's your brother. We understand it's family. You're going to take care of family, and we're all about family on the show. So I think we can also
glad he was looking out for him.
yeah.
He was looking out for his brother, but from what we're seeing, it kind of sounds like both Cuomo brothers look out a little too much for their neighbors.
Yeah, a little too much. Yes, Journey. Journey wanted to see Chris Cuomo go as well. So, so this week, after a series of things coming out, sexual misconduct, a number of other things, CNN Business actually. This is where I've pulled my source. So if you want the source, message me. I'll send it to you. I'll try to make sure that the links are all available. CNN fires Chris Cuomo. Woo! Sorry, I needed to celebrate it a little
That
bit.
just moves Don Lemon up the ladder and the rest of it.
Not necessarily, and we'll get to that in a minute, actually. CNN said Saturday that the anchor Chris Cuomo has been terminated by the network effective immediately. The announcement came after outside law firm was retained to review information about exactly how Cuomo aided his brother, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, when the then governor was accused of sexual harassment. Babylon Bee, we talked about this before, and I want to give them the credit on this. It said that the unemployment rate amongst the Cuomo brothers is now 100%.
100%. Yes, absolutely.
So, thank you, Laughing Libertarian, for reiterating it, too, because I love it. So CNN had initially just suspended him indefinitely on Tuesday, but after so many things came out, Jeff Zucker, who owns and runs CNN, fired him on Saturday because of all the other things that were coming out. He's
Nice to see that he paid him for the whole week.
He was
He
allowed
fired
to,
him on a Saturday, not on a Friday.
yeah.
Right.
Didn't want to get him, shortchange him on his 40 hours.
So they allowed him to make a statement. He said he didn't. This is not the way he wanted it to go. Obviously, this is not the way you want it to go when you've been lying about everything, including your sexual misconduct. But it's the way the cookie crumbled for him. And to further on that, Andrew Cuomo, the governor, who we talked a little bit about last week as well, he had done a not just the one thing, not just a sexual harassment. He mishandled things during COVID. I think now it's finally coming out that people are starting to agree with these things. They're starting to realize that the death toll there, just like in Michigan with Governor Whitmer, that they made some very poor decisions, that they weren't the bee's knees, they weren't making the right decisions.
Did you notice Whitmer's trying her hardest to be moderate right now?
So trying so hard.
Is she up for re-election?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, so she passed the pink tax recently. I don't know if you know what the pink tax is, but she made tampons cheaper. So there's a big win for women and menstruating persons everywhere.
Man.
Yeah. So it's just menstruating people.
Persons, yes, people.
People. Would that be, politically correct?
I think
That is the current
is
term, menstruating persons. Yes.
Persons? Okay, alrighty. That wasn't something I was up on because I always thought it was women.
Yeah.
last time I checked, but
Granted,
I mean, it's
there's times there's a few men I've met that have definitely been on menopause.
Yeah, certainly.
Usually
I
it's
think-
one time a month after she's had hers.
Yeah, I think that the Cuomo brothers probably had their cycles linked together.
just like their jobs.
Just like their jobs. Thank you, Alan. And, so...
Well, let's just keep in mind, we'll take a statement from Governor Cuomo. Promise made, promise kept.
Yeah, he sure did. So to jump into our next point, our next topic here, this week was I'm going to give my source first. According to this Fox News article, Jesse Smollett testified this week to receiving texts from CNN's Don Lemon during Chicago police attack investigation. So today he was convicted of a hate crime, not Don Lemon, but by Jussie Smollett. So, but this is very damning news for Don Lemon, who's just watched his. I won't say not co-anchor because they have shows that follow each other.
Cohort.
Yeah, his
Co-worker. I mean,
Co-worker, cohort.
yeah.
They might have been sharing the heart, so it could have been a co.
he's all those things, and he's just watched this co-worker get fired for almost less, in my opinion,
Yes.
because he's involved heavily in this. What I think everyone's seen through to be a fake attack. You had two young men from Nigeria, I believe, hired to portray young men in MAGA hats and say something that I don't think any man in a MAGA hat has ever said. Oh, this is MAGA country. Definitely not in Chicago. And definitely, I don't know where the bleach thing comes in. It confuses me.
I don't know, but I'm just proud that an American finally got an ability to scam a Nigerian prince, right? Like all those Nigerian princes scamming little old ladies here in America all those years, and now an American has finally scammed a Nigerian.
The tables have turned, sir.
They know better. We set a precedent now.
The interesting thing to me is, I mean, we finally reached the verdict. It's taken 3 years, and it all stemmed from the simple fact is I'm getting ready to get fired. I've got to up my game. I got to show that I am truly the king of Empire. And unfortunately for him, I don't know what the end result, what the judge will finally decide.
For sentencing, yes.
Yeah, for sentencing. He has the opportunity to receive 3 years. I believe either Fox or Channel 13 was identifying that good
This
likelihood.
local Indiana news stations, by the way.
Yes, local Indiana said that he would probably wouldn't see any jail time.
Yeah, most likely not.
But yeah, I can confirm
you know
via
what,
this Fox
it's-
News article that they did say that he does face up to 3 years in prison for said hate crime.
And they can make him serve it consecutively.
Yeah,
They can make it up to 15 if they really, for some reason, wanted to.
Yeah, it
drive
depends on
home.
the judge, I guess.
Realistically, do I want to see him serve all of it? I don't know, but I think there needs to be some.
I think when you're generalizing and you're defamating the character of an entire group, any group,
you have lumped a specific race, people that liked the former president, and wanting to claim their crimes upon you. I voted for the man. I didn't know Smollett from
Sommelier.
Smollett. Okay.
yeah.
Now
Yeah,
Smollett from Sommelier.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
so that's even new to me. I didn't. Okay, I've been pronouncing his name wrong.
No. I was saying Smollett from Sommelier, the guy who brings you out your wine.
Okay.
Tells you what wine pairs with your food.
Oh, okay.
I knew who he was before he was on the Empire show and before he came out, because he was in the first Mighty Ducks. He was such a bad actor.
What did he play in?
Yeah, he was the one of the kids that claimed that Banks was a cake eater. He's in the Mighty Ducks movie.
So was it Jesse or his brother?
It's his brother.
Okay.
Yeah. He doesn't play because the kid who plays that one. He's I can't remember if he's in the second movie, but Jussie Smollett's character actually gets replaced by Kenan Thompson in the second one. He's got the knuckle puck, the
knuckle puck. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So it is the brother to Jesse. Jesse was the one that definitely referenced him as cake eater. I can kind of see where Smollett kind of did not make it into the second one. His character just really kind of
he was
almost a shadow afterthought.
I mean, I know he was a child actor,
child
but he was still a flat actor. And I watched Empire, if I'm being honest, and it was the same there too. He was a flat actor. I didn't get anything out of it with him as far as acting goes. I just didn't enjoy it.
And talking about looking at what he did and why it should carry some weight against what charges and what he has to do. It's a simple fact that if we look at any normal charge that could be directed towards someone, if there is hate or racism tied to it, it tacks on time. Yes. It tacks on penalty. So likewise, if you were going to call in, fake reports and you're going to tack on race and hate, they should, just as it goes the other way, just as it swings the opposite way, you should have to pay extra time for that as well. Yeah. And I know there is a distinction on his charges, about being a racial issue there, but I want to see it carry the same kind of weight as if you did something and it was somehow found that it was racially involved or motivated. Yes. And how much time that adds on. I want to see that equally swing the opposite direction. Yes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that door needs to, that revolving door needs to revolve for whomever pushes upon it.
Because
if a white person would have done this, of course we've got to wait. Yeah. We know a white man would have been convicted also. That's just plain, pure, and simple. So let's just get that out of the way. Yeah, doesn't matter the color of your skin. If you play this game, you're guilty. You've got all the evidence that shows that you were dumb enough to do this.
You're dumb enough to lie.
If you're dumb enough to lie, sooner or later, a lie is going to get you caught.
Goes back to my earlier point. Are you a good person or are you a bad person?
Yeah.
He proved he's a bad person.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so now that he's a bad person, he's on the naughty list. He's not getting gifts from Santa this year.
No.
Convict him. Not only convict him, but sentence him to
a low sulfur grade of coal.
Yeah. Because I'm sure that the result of that, anybody that actually happened to believe that stupid story,
I believe there still are people that believe that's telling the truth.
Yeah, and that's the unfortunate side effect of that, right? Yeah. Because he's put hate. We talked about how strong that word is.
Yes.
Hate in other people's hearts that were probably even previously being good neighbors. And now they're doing these things that they wouldn't have normally done because they've been influenced. He needs, in my book, he needs to be sentenced to the full extent of the law because he's a public figure and he should have known better.
Yes. The main so on the basis of the public figure, because if we start setting a precedent, well, we see where things are at in California. It's not working. And
neither is California.
True. Most restrictions, but yet you've got people robbing people in broad daylight. You're probably safer being on set with Alec Baldwin than you are being in Los Angeles. I believe that is
been working at Von Mar.
Yeah.
JCPenney.
I believe that is a good, safe analogy. He can only hit you with one bullet at a time with the revolver that he had.
Although if you his interview earlier this week, which I don't have the article here in front of me, but on his interview earlier this week, he said that he absolutely did not pull the trigger on set. He didn't actually fire a weapon, and I'm like, then why did everyone around you say that you did?
I have seen that type of revolver. There is a video of that you can find on John Schneider takes basically the same gun and shows that you cannot, that hammer has to be all the way back for you to pull that trigger. You can pull that, if that hammer's down, you can pull that trigger as many times as you want. It's not going to do anything. But the first rule of gun safety is you don't put your finger on the, you don't touch the trigger.
Right.
Well, I guess that's technically the second. Anytime you get a gun, you make sure it's clear. And I guess since we
treat every weapon as if it's loaded.
If you treat every weapon as it's loaded, you point it at the ground. Despite what some of our political leaders, just point it up in the air and 2 shots. It'll scare off anyone.
Political representatives. I want to get away from the term political leaders. Here's why. Because I
didn't want to completely identify him or alienate the individual that made the comment. strictly on the basis that this is my political view of the situation.
Right. Yeah. I do want to get away from that term political. This is my belief. I want to get away from the term because people use political leaders too often nowadays. They are representatives. That was what we fought
Touche.
the Revolutionary War for.
Yes.
It was taxation without representation. We fought for a representation. We now have representation. So that's what the people, whether they're in Washington, Indiana, Indianapolis, Beech Grove, they need to understand that they were hired by the people and that they're there to represent said people.
It's true.
They are not there to lead anyone.
Well,
They're there to answer to us. That's their job.
But I also believe it's in the fashion when anyone identifies as leaders, is they are to take up the gauntlet to direct and to, in essence, be the good father to take hold of his son and his daughter, and walk them through the crowd.
I think this
I believe that is where anyone that identifies it in that fashion, that is the direction they're looking at it.
Yeah,
as.
unfortunately,
But unfortunately, the mind of individuals that have received this power, and they say they want to help, but all you have to do is look at the amount of time that they've been there and say, how much help have you given? Now, there'll be those that say, oh, they've helped. I'm at a spot now. I'm not libertarian. I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. I am patriot. I hate to see anyone destroy this country. It bothers me. We are at a spot in this country that I am frustrated. I hate to see the direction. And literally, this story proves where it's at. Now, now,
because not only that, but
the best thing, if Smollett would have came out and said, all right, fine, you've got me. I was getting ready to get fired. And this is what was on, it could have been Inside Edition or on Fox, one of the Fox, NBC. I'm not sure what station was identifying that the report was he was going to get axed off the show. He's going to get killed off. And then this takes place. Now, I don't know if those two situations had anything to do with each other. I do not know.
It seemingly sure does seem like a coincidence, but going further to that with that. So what Don Lemon actually texted him was insider information for Chicago Police Department into the incident.
Yeah, that they did not believe him.
Right.
Is what I had heard.
I mean, when you're a journalist, you do get information because you're going to be doling out that information. And so what position does it put you in if you're going to be doling out information ahead of the curve? I mean, think about it. When you get breaking news, this is obviously information that person has been given prior to giving it to you.
The news he received, if it's news that he can delve out to the public, but he says something to Smollett, is he technically wrong in doing? So if he can tell the American public this information, now was this information that he could not share or should not have shared that we're talking about? Or
we're talking about investigation information. So this is information that only as a reporter he's previewed to a lot of information.
Okay.
That he's not going to even get to share on air, but he has to know these things in order to report properly. Unfortunately, he chooses not to. He did try to play cleanup a little bit. Don Lemon went as far as to say he lied to a lot of people, including me, and that's not cool. But that's not enough cleanup. No. You have given out previewed information, closed book information. You've broken the law.
Okay, so it was closed book information. It was not information that was going to get shared with the public.
Exactly. This is investigation,
kind of
Chicago Police Department investigation information.
Okay, so it's information that has been identified, but it is information that is not to be made public.
Right.
We're giving you information to kind of let you know the direction we're going in. We are concerned about this. We're not really, things aren't adding up.
But what we're seeing though, I mean, what we've seen in the last week and a half is everyone on that certain network seems to, as soon as information comes out, they seem to push a barrier between themselves and that person. Have you not noticed that? Like,
Oh, yeah.
oh, Cuomo, they're like, oh yeah, 5 minutes ago they were buddies, and now it's let's disassociate. And now they're like, oh, hey, we're really going to push for this poor guy who was a victim of a hate crime. Oh, he said something that doesn't shade, that kind of throws some shade at me or doesn't show me in the best light, even though it's the truth. Let's go ahead and disassociate. And it's just anything they're deflecting, and that is never a good look.
It's like we talked about last week, snake eating its own tail. I was one of the good ones just before they get their head bitten off, and it's not going to matter. It's not going to matter. And what they don't realize is they keep placating to the same snake that they've watched their buddies' heads get. That your time is coming. The guillotine is coming, bud. And so you either play the game right and start being truthful and put everything out on the table for us to all hear and see.
Just keep in mind that you can
know the ramifications of your action.
Off, but it can still bite.
It can still bite.
You know what really got me on this whole thing, though, I'm going to be honest with you, was we're in the Midwest, obviously. We've talked about Indianapolis. We love this city. We love this part of the country.
Yes, we do.
Chicago is the bluest area in the Midwest, period. I mean, if you pull up any kind of polling statistics, in Chicago, you can actually pull up individual neighborhoods for blue and red, depending on how they voted in the last election. Okay, what is the likelihood you're walking around Chicago, and you're going to run into people wearing MAGA hats, period, right? And let alone those people are going to be so emboldened that they're going to attack you. Like, this story is so ridiculous given the city it's in. We're not talking about a red city. We're not talking about a suburb. Yeah. We're talking about inner city Chicago, the bluest city in the Midwest. And then you have the nerve to say that this happened in that city. Yeah. Could you imagine these men? Just picture this. These men walking down the street, rope in hand, MAGA hat on, just walking. How many blocks do they walk? Holding nooses, right? Holding a noose.
Before they're going to get shot.
Right. You know what I'm saying? None of this.
They're getting shot.
Yeah.
Well, they're getting shot. Not only shot there, they're getting shot in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. They're getting shot while they're in the hospital because the guns are everywhere, even though they've got some of the tightest gun laws in the country.
Yeah. They are actually third or fourth on the list of, and that was on a news report actually today. California has the strictest.
Send me those links because I want to put them in our.
Actually, I believe Stu can bring that up. I believe it was either on. I'm wanting to say it was on Fox, WXIN, Fox News.
Sterling.
Today.
By the way.
Sterling. I am so sorry. See, I
apologize to our executive producer.
I'm good with faces, not with names. Don't worry, Alan. I won't call you Hal.
That's okay.
Yeah. So yeah, much like Silver, he's Sterling. So
Sterling, yes.
I will say though. And I kind of said a little bit earlier, though, one great thing about Jussie Smollett, we have to say one good thing, right? We didn't really give him a solid compliment sandwich. It was really open-faced. Yeah. Was that he's an equitable employer. I mean, absolutely, right? Yeah. I mean, what other guy would look at the positions he wants to hire and hire 2 immigrant minorities to play the role of white guys when he could very well hire white guys? I mean, that's really
exactly.
That's really digging deep and doing the right thing by today's standards.
Absolutely.
Completely. No. Yeah. To just kind of echoing on this whole deal, it just kind of runs to
Journey. She's
it runs
getting
to
her
where
points in
we're
as well.
at, and it's a shame that those at Capitol Hill, those in the media, and then we've got other groups that just want to echo hate, and it's so overwhelming. Are there issues? Yes, and we're trying to work through them. Is the system perfect? No. But if you want a better system, then be part of the solution and not part of the problem. If we look at how crime works, we're going to look for the areas where crime is, because those neighborhoods say we want a larger police presence. So we put more police there, and then people complain. And as I was saying, that police presence enters into the communities, and then when crimes take place, then who gets pulled over, who gets anyone that's fleeing those areas. And then they're like, well, it's because I'm, whatever the situation may be, is the reason why I'm being pulled over. It's like, okay, we've got crime in the area. We're looking for X. We're looking for Y in a vehicle. Well, guess what? You're Z, because X and Y equal Z.
It's interesting you bring that up because I actually went through the process to become a police officer in this city, and a part of the interviewing process, I don't know what I'm giving away, not trying to give anything away or affect anything there, but part of that interview, at least mine, was that I actually had to sit down and they said, okay, this is the situation. You look the way you look, talking about me. You're an officer. You get a report that people who don't look like you in a red vehicle have robbed a gas station. Okay, you were in the neighborhood. It's in your area. So you find a car that looks exactly like that. You pull those people over. You walk up. You do your due diligence. They start yelling at you, saying that you are profiling them. How do you respond? It's like, well, I mean, this is unfortunately the car you're driving. Matches the description of the car that we're looking for. And we had 2 males that look like you as far as the description. So I have to check everything. And they said, okay, what if they're not happy? What if they start yelling at you? What if they get confrontational with you? And it's like, well, at some point we have to cut that off and just say, look, to keep everyone safe in this neighborhood, including you, I have to be able to rule you out. Now I've done my work. I've ruled you out. Would you like to carry on and move on about your day while I go try to find the people we're looking for? Or are we going to have to look into something, a different crime?
Exactly.
Okay, and that's really, and in those situations, I always typically, and I say this all the time, I go, why don't we look at the victims? The people that you're looking for in a neighborhood are victimizing people in that neighborhood. Okay? It doesn't matter what color they are. Statistically, white people commit more crimes against white people than any other race. Yeah. Black people commit more crimes against black people than any other race. Hispanic people, the same. The only race that doesn't commit more crimes against their own than another race are Asian people, statistically speaking. Okay? Now, I'm not saying anyone's
That's
better.
because they're too busy passing math tests. They're amazing at everything they touch.
So, not saying anyone's better or worse than anybody else. I'm just saying, statistically speaking, you're more likely as a white person to fall into committing a crime against another white person, and so on and so forth, right?
Exactly.
So, why aren't we looking at the victims when we look at, a case where, said person, there's a reason why the police are there. Let's be honest, okay? It's not because this is a bad neighborhood. It's when someone calls the police. The police are not just sitting there going, hey, I want my job to be really hard and I want to do a whole lot of paperwork and possibly get in a gunfight tonight.
Yeah.
That's not how the mentality works.
Exactly, no.
I want to clock in. I want to do my job.
And I want to
everything
go home
well,
to my family.
And I want to go home, right? Nobody wants an extra hard day at work. No one wants to potentially go to the ER because you've been shot or not make it home at all.
Exactly.
Okay? So here's the thing. They're there for a reason. So someone calls, says, hey, I'm a victim of a crime. Such and such happened. This is what the person looks like. Well, because we know, statistically speaking, that people of a given race typically commit crimes against people in their own race because they live close to each other. They know each other. In a neighborhood, that typically happens. So why don't we ever look at the victim of the crime? Instead, we look at the criminal who then has an altercation with the police officer. We never double back and say, well, this person is not a victim of police brutality. They are a criminal, and here is the victim of them. Here's their victim. Yeah. No, we cut them out altogether, and they should have the privacy. I completely agree. You shouldn't put them on stage. But when you look at these things, just as we saw with the lady who was killed by the teenager who was killed by the officer who was stabbing another lady, right?
Exactly.
Before we had the full story, we saw police officer shoots and kills teenage girl.
Exactly.
Then we get the whole video. Well, it's still awful that he killed that person. Shouldn't he have been able to stop her without shooting and killing her? Well, why don't we go talk to the lady who was in the act of being stabbed by this lady, right?
Exactly.
So at that point, wouldn't you want your life to be saved by a police officer possibly killing this person? This person is not a victim of police brutality.
I know I would want them to.
As much as they're...
I'm pretty sure I don't want an extra hole in me at all.
Right, I got enough. I was given all the ones I wanted,
Yeah.
and I made a few modifications.
Yes.
That was on my own.
Yes.
So that's only where I'm looking at is the neighborhoods that the most heavily policed. They're not heavily policed because of any other reason that they have the most calls there. So to shorten the response time to save a victim's life or a victim's livelihood, they police heavily there. And then you have people saying, oh, well, it's because they're wanting to oppress people in the area. No. It's just where are the crimes? If you looked at a map that showed where all the 911 calls are coming in, whether that's downtown, whether that's, look at residential areas, there are some.
Yeah.
But look where businesses are. If there are a lot of businesses being robbed, burglarized, whatever is going on in that area, you are going to see a heavier police presence.
Yes,
Journey's telling me, hey, you beat this to a pulp.
Yeah. And to drive that point home, yes, Journey, we are about to close. She is wanting her treats real bad. It's dinner time. So you were talking about one of the situations is getting pulled over because this person happened to match the description. I actually had this happen. Believe it or not, this happened to me. It's actually happened twice. Once went very swiftly. I actually still caught a speeding ticket because I was speeding. I'm going to be honest, I was speeding. And the other time, it was a little rougher. I had to exit the vehicle. I was patted down. But the police officer, I complied with everything the police officer, because he was doing his job. I looked like someone in the area who committed a violent crime, to my knowledge. And I'm like, you know what? He's going to rule me out. Let's get through this. He'll figure out that I'm not a bad guy. I didn't have to...
Yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
The worst case scenario is always fight it out in court, don't fight it out on the street.
Yeah. And I wasn't mistreated in any way, shape, or form, and either because with the first one I was speeding, so he had a reason to pull me over to begin with, and the second time I was like, why am I being pulled over? I know I wasn't speeding this time, but I matched the description. I looked like someone in the area, and
supposedly was driving a little car, and he's driving a Neon. And then later on, it comes back that it's a Nissan, not a Neon. So that throws that one out.
I did have another situation in Illinois where I think I experienced illegal search and seizure, but we won't go down that rabbit hole.
Right here in Beech Grove, I got pulled over for following an older gentleman a little too close one morning and ended up with a gun in my face. That was great. And the officer just pulled me over. I was going through the process at the time. Pulls me over and I say, hey, my hands were already out. Car was off. License, registration, gun permit in hands out the window. Right? I want to make sure I'm as visible as possible. Comes up. I told him right where the gun is on my hip. Here's all my information. It's right here on my hip. He immediately pulls his gun and puts it in my face and says, if these hands move, you're going to have a bad day. And I'm like, he's a young guy, young officer, jumpy. First thing, doesn't give him any permission to put his gun in my face.
No, not in the least.
Slightly different for me.
But there's still just hey, buddy, I'm letting you know where it is, and here's all the information. I'm volunteering everything. If you'd like to take the gun off my hip, feel free. So nothing happened. He ran it, came back, said, hey, get off the rear end of everybody.
Yeah, and what happened with me was just actually dissimilar. I did match the description. I did get patted down. I did the whole thing. My gun was clipped onto the front of my belt, but my hands were on the steering wheel. And I don't know if that's what made the difference with my hands being on the steering wheel. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I don't know.
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah. But to that point, my hands were visible. I made sure I had my dome light on. It was quite early in the morning. I wanted to make sure that this officer knew that I was going to do everything I wanted to clear my name. I'm not, if I'm matching a description, I want to say, innocent, please let me know. Yeah, so I think we'll close it right there. We'll get down to the nitty gritty. We're going to close with a prayer.
Yes.
Make sure we mention Don and his wife.
Don
they
and
need
his
prayers,
wife.
and we'll make sure that we mention Louis.
Yes. All righty. Blessed Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time that we could come together for this broadcast, Lord. We had a wonderful time. We just pray that those that are watching will enjoy it just as much as we do and will engage with the conversation and comments. And Lord, we just ask that as the great physician that you are, we would like for you to intervene in the surgery for Don's wife. We know that you can do exceedingly abundantly above whatever we could ask, Lord. And as Louis continues through his process of healing, we know that that your grace and mercy is in abundant fashion for each and every one of us, Lord. We just ask that you give that to him. Be with his wife, Norma, as she plays nurse to her husband that she loves. We know that at times we, as partners in a relationship, we can be difficult at times when we're hurting. So just give her an extra amount of grace and mercy as she plays nurse to her husband. And Lord, we just ask as we adjourn from this time of this podcast, just take us home safely and let us return again next week for a great show once again. We ask all of this in Jesus' blessed and holy name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. Yeah, this has been Faith, Family, and Politics. Thanks for joining us. Once again, I'm your host, Joshua Cummins. To my left here is Alan McFarland, host of a new show launching next month.
Laughing Libertarian show next month.
Yep.
Hope to see you guys there.
And across from me is my father, Gary Moore.
Hey, you guys take care and turn into my YouTube channel for Word from the Word on More with the More. More on the More.
More on the
You
more.
would think you would you'd know your own YouTube channel.
That's
Yeah.
like knowing your own phone number. You don't
Yes.
call yourself.
No, I don't call myself. So yeah. So when everyone asks that question, it's like, hold on, let me get my phone.
Yeah.
It's like,
I'll
hold
make
on.
sure and post those links to our Faith, Family, and Politics page.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.